Look at fundamentals with Alexis. We have finished sentiment. We're going to have a look at fundamentals. After that, we'll go and have a chat with Ash about data. Thank you, Julian. Alexis, what are the fundamentals telling us this week? Where should we be heading?
Well, I think it was really great that Julian actually shared the sentiment cycle. So I was kind of out of touch with the market for a bit. And what I did, the first thing when I got back to charts was really to look at the sentiment cycle and see where things are at. And coincidentally, I'm not best at it, but I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm just going to share what I found. Anyway, the British pound, I think there's a good chance that they are looking at increasing interest rates. And then if you look at the news across the US, it's going to be like 50-50. And when I say 50-50, it's mainly because US banks, right? The US banks are actually taking diverging bets on the direction of interest rates. So I'm going to share the article and to give you a little bit of a sensing of where it's going. Let me just share screen here. Okay, so over here, all right. So one thing that came out was when I saw this article where they were talking about the investors crank up bets on UK interest rate rises. It's a question of what's happening in the UK, and will they be the ones to actually do an interest rate hike ahead of the US, right? And when we look at the news coming up from the US, the question would be, so where exactly are they going? Are they going to increase interest rates? Are they going to hold interest rates? Where as it goes? And the messaging, I think, is very clear when you have the big banks taking diverging bets on interest rates, meaning nobody knows, right? So there is not very great clarity on where interest rates are going, and it shows in the debt portfolio of the major US banks. So over here, it just tells you which banks are holding more treasuries, which banks are holding less treasuries, and who's buying more, who's buying less. So it's a very clear signal that, as of now, it is still very uncertain in terms of where the US dollar is going to go in terms of interest rates. So when we look again on this article, and they're talking about the Bank of England is moving towards more of a increasing interest rates to combat their inflation. The question then will be, will there be a better opportunity trading the pound? So what I'm doing is I'm actually looking more on the pound in the next couple of weeks until a little bit more clarity comes in. And when we look at the statistics for the pound, right? Let me just flash the stats for the pound. So trading economics again is a very easy way to look at it. So over here, the UK, you can see that the inflation rate is currently at 3.2%. I mean, if you compare this to the US of 5.4, it doesn't seem a very big problem. But I think if you see the increase, so what the government in the UK is probably spooked by is like, there is a sudden hike of 1.2% inflation, right? So it's like suddenly it's inflation is going up, and then is it then a knee-jerk reaction to kind of work on interest rates? If you compare the US inflation rate, I think the one thing that we can see is actually holding steady. So it's not getting higher, at least. So I don't think there's a lot of urgency in terms of it changing interest rates, because it's kind of holding steady. So I think the urgency might be a little bit more in the UK, and that is why they're contemplating on, okay, is this time, to combat inflation, or are we good to just hold it? So of course, that brings us down to what can we trade in the next couple of weeks, and I really am interested in the pound pairs. So first I'm going to share the other pound pairs and just look at the level. So when we talk about implementing a little bit of fundamentals into trading the actual currencies, it's always good to see a bigger picture, right? So when I go through the pound pairs, what I am looking for is let me just go out to the weekly time frame first. It's just to see what levels are they at, and what is the impact of a potential increase in interest rates might do. So pound Swiss, I would say, is not very clear, not much clarity. If you look at pound Aussie on the weekly time frame, again, it is interesting. Pound Aussie actually is interesting on the daily time frame. Let me just get a bit of a ratio of this charts. All right, it is interesting because it seems to be testing a resistance turn support at this area. So this is a daily time frame. So if the pound were to increase its interest rates, does that mean if we will see a push from one of these levels over here? Will there be an increase in the value of the pound currency, right? So if you talk about textbook economics, I mean, if we just very simple definition, right? If all factors being equal, okay, all economic factors being equal, higher interest rates in one country potentially increases the value of that country's currency relative to other nations offering lower interest rates. So this is like a textbook definition. So if we just throw everything aside, textbook definition, if interest rates increase for the pound, will there be a higher probability that price will find support at this level and head up? So that is the question that I am looking for a lot of the pound pairs. And if we look at pound yen, let me zoom in a little bit. And if we look at pound yen, the question would be again over here. It seems to have broken a resistance level. So the question would be, all right, so if it's broken a resistance level, will price then come back, retest this line and find that, find that push that it needs with this potential interest rate hike, right? So I'm looking at the probabilities of, okay, where is it tending to go to in terms of fundamentals, and using the technicals to kind of help me find a way in. Pound CAD is a bit more interesting because it's a pretty decent support level over here on the daily time frame. If we shift out on a weekly time frame, then it is a curious thing as, okay, it is at an interesting level, right? I mean, price has been bouncing off this area. Will the pound go upwards? So yes, I'm a bit leaning towards a bullish pound based on the fundamentals coming up and the technicals levels is at, and what I'm looking for is which currency pair in comparison will give me a best boost to it. On top of that, let's talk about a bit of sentiment cycle. And based on what Julian was saying just now, I'm not an expert in sentiment cycle. What I've just did was I actually have a picture of the sentiment cycle that I put on my trading screen when I'm kind of figuring out where price is going. So I'm just going to do this. So my question is, I'm drawing arrows at what I think where they are, like just by trying to recognize the pattern. And again, pound dollar, the question I have for myself is this the support level that we're looking at for price to bounce up? Is this that, according to the sentiment cycle, is this that anxiety level? Are we near a so-called denial level? So I'm a little bit bullish the pound. Not a little bit, I'm more bullish the pound in terms of where it's at on a technical level, and also in the potential interest of the interest rates actually moving up, and it seems to be a lot of talk about it. And if the interest rates really move ahead of the US, all right, it will be quite a big jump, I feel, because usually every country is actually waiting for the US to move first. So if the pound takes that first step, I think the market will find a push at least to one side or the other. So I'm using these technical levels to help me find what are the probabilities of where to find our entries in. All right, so that's it for me. I'm looking for the pound for the next couple of weeks until there is until the actual interest rate actually pops out. But I'm looking for the moves to be kind of priced in, for traders to be kind of looking a little bit more towards a bullish direction, and we'll see where that goes. Thank you, Paul.
Cheers, Alexis. Thank you very much. Always good to get a bit of an understanding on fundamentals, and that direct link to inflation and interest rates seems pretty clear. We'll watch that with a lot of interest.